There's something oddly beautiful about living in a beach town during the off-season. When summer ends and the tourists disappear, the place transforms completely. The crowds vanish, storefronts are boarded up, ice cream stands and t-shirt shops sit silent and shuttered, and the boardwalk, the beating heart of the town during peak season, becomes a hollow shell of what it once was, just wood, wind and echoes. Some find it eerie, I find it peaceful. That's why, for years, I developed this ritual. Late night runs along the boardwalk, especially in the colder months. No noise, no people, no distractions. Just the crash of waves, the smell of salt, and the rhythmic pounding of my feet on wood. It became my personal detox from the chaos of everyday life, my escape. Sometimes, I think it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Tonight felt no different at first. The air was sharp, crisp, with a biting chill that carried the familiar scent of salt water and damp, aging wood. The moon was hidden behind clouds, and the only light came from scattered old street lamps, flickering dimly and casting stretched-out shadows that swayed with the wind. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that almost hums in your ears. I'd only been running for maybe a mile when something shifted, just a subtle instinct, a prickle on the back of my neck. That creeping, unshakable feeling you get when you just know you're not alone. I slowed my pace and looked over my shoulder. There, down the boardwalk, stood a man. He wasn't walking, wasn't moving at all, just standing, motionless, facing directly toward me. I blinked. My breath caught slightly, but I forced myself to turn back around. I tried to brush it off. Maybe just another local out for a walk. Still, the way he stood there, not swaying, not pacing, just staring, set my nerves on edge. I kept going, pushing forward and trying to regain my rhythm. But the unease didn't leave. In fact, it grew. Minutes later, that creeping awareness returned, stronger this time. The weight of eyes on my back was unbearable. I turned again. He was closer, still, silent, still facing me. A chill ran through my body, not from the cold, but from something deeper, primal. I pulled out my one earbud and quickened my pace. The sound of my own footsteps became sharp and frantic on the wooden planks, but then, faintly, I heard another set, behind me, echoing mine. I spun around once more, closer again, but still not moving. That was it. I broke into a sprint, full speed. I didn't care if I looked insane. The boardwalk, which had always felt freeing, now seemed endless, like I was running through some liminal space that had no exit. My car was parked at the far end, near the sand dunes by the beach entrance. I kept my eyes locked on the path ahead. Each time I dared glance back, the man was a little closer, yet always still, always watching. It didn't make sense. How was he moving without being seen moving? How could he stop so suddenly, so perfectly timed with each of my glances? It was like a nightmare logic unfolding in real life. Finally, through the burning in my legs and lungs, I saw the end of the boardwalk, and my car. My hands shook as I yanked my keys out of my pocket. I fumbled to hit the unlock button. When the lights blinked, I practically dove into the front seat, slammed the door shut, and started the engine with trembling fingers. I didn't look back. Not until I had the car in reverse and backed out of the space. As I turned the wheel, headlights washed over the boardwalk, and that's when I saw him, standing exactly where my car had been just moments ago. I only caught a glimpse, but it was enough. Hood up, face obscured, no details, just presence. I couldn't tell you what he looked like, only that he was there. I floored it, whipping the car around so fast the tires squealed. I didn't stop. Didn't care about lights or speed limits or anything, but getting as far away as possible. I didn't glance at the mirrors once on the drive home. The second I got inside, I locked every door, every window, even the sliding glass door I never usually bother with. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Since then, I've had nightmares, vague, disturbing dreams where he appears. Sometimes just standing, other times chasing. My mind keeps creating its own twisted version of his face, filling in the blanks with horrors my eyes never actually saw. That was the last winter night I ever ran on the boardwalk. This happened last summer. I was 22 and spending a long weekend at the shore with a group of friends. We booked the cheapest Airbnb we could find, some small house a few blocks off the beach. It wasn't glamorous, but we didn't care. It was about getting away and squeezing in one last summer memory before life got busy again. On the last night of our stay, we built a bonfire on the beach. We drank, we laughed, we told dumb stories. There was nothing particularly crazy about it. It was just one of those nights where everything felt simple and good. Around midnight, people started peeling off to head back to the house. I wasn't ready to call it quits yet, though. I figured I'd walk off the buzz, enjoy the quiet, and meet them back at the Airbnb later. The boardwalk at night has a strange beauty. All the lights are low, the shops are shut tight, and the noise of the day is gone. It feels peaceful, almost sacred in a way. I hadn't spent much time at the beach before that trip, so I found myself kind of mesmerized by the stillness of it all. After wandering for a while, I felt the need to pee, like, bad, but I'm not the kind of guy who just relieves himself behind a building or in the dunes like some of my friends would. They always tease me for it, but that's just not who I am. I spotted one of those public restrooms tucked under the boardwalk, a faded concrete block with a flickering light above the door. It looked disgusting, but I didn't have many options. I pushed the heavy door open and was immediately hit with a stench, a mix of harsh bleach and something worse underneath. I made a face, held my breath, and headed to the farthest stall. I figured I'd get it over with fast and leave. A minute or so after I got in, I heard the door creak open again. I paused. Footsteps echoed inside, slow, deliberate. They didn't head straight to a stall. Instead, they seemed to wander, almost like pacing. At one point, I swear I heard movement from two different directions, but I couldn't be sure. Eventually, the footsteps stopped, right near the sinks, but then there was nothing. No sounds, no water running, no coughing, no doors opening or closing, just silence. I finished up and reached for the stall door to leave, but it didn't budge. I jiggled the latch, still stuck. That's when a deep unease set in. Something didn't feel right. My gut twisted as I got the sense that maybe, just maybe, someone was on the other side of the door, holding it shut. I pushed harder. Nothing. My heart started to pound. I could hear movement again, footsteps, but this time they were closer, right outside the stall. I didn't wait to find out who or what was out there. I threw my shoulder into the door and slammed it open. I stumbled out into the open space and saw the bathroom door swinging closed, like someone had just exited. I looked around quickly. The bathroom appeared empty, but something told me I wasn't alone. I rushed to the door and grabbed the handle. It wouldn't move. The knob didn't even turn. It was locked from the outside. My hands started shaking. I banged on the door, yelling for someone to let me out. No answer. Then I heard movement behind me, coming from one of the stalls. I turned slowly. There were no feet visible under any of the doors. Whoever was inside had to be standing on the toilet, hiding, watching. That's when it really hit me. There had been two people in there. My breath was coming in short bursts now. I scanned the bathroom again and saw a grimy little window up near the ceiling. It was small, but it might work. I climbed onto the sink, which groaned under my weight, and shoved the window open. Just as I was crawling halfway through, one of the stall doors burst open behind me. I turned and saw him, a man, mid to late 40s at least, but dressed like a teenager. Hooded sweatshirt, sneakers, pale skin, messy hair. His face was gaunt, his eyes wide. We locked eyes for just a second. That was enough. I shoved myself through the rest of the way and dropped down hard onto the boardwalk. My knee slammed into the wood, but I barely noticed. I just ran. Once I was far enough away, I called the police. To their credit, they arrived quickly. I showed them the restroom, explained everything. One of the officers examined the door and pointed out fresh scratch marks on the outer handle. It looked like someone had deliberately tampered with it. They never found the guy. No cameras in that part of the boardwalk. No witnesses. No updates. I left town the next morning and never heard another word about it. I might be off on a few details. It happened a long time ago when I was about 8 or 9. The memory still sticks with me, though it feels hazy now, like something half remembered from a dream. Or maybe more accurately, a nightmare. It was during one of those summers when our whole extended family would gather at my grandparents' beach house. That place was the heart of every summer. Aunts, uncles, cousins, we'd all cram into that not-so-big house and stay for weeks. The furniture was old, the kitchen always smelled faintly of salt and lemons, and the fans never worked, but it was perfect. The house wasn't anything special, but to me it felt massive, full of strange corners and hidden spots. It sat just a few blocks from the ocean, and every day was a loop, bike rides, boogie boards, collecting shells. We lived barefoot, sticky with salt water, happy. But that summer was different. There was a hurricane forecasted, a big one. The whole town had been preparing. They built huge sand dunes along the beach, not soft rolling dunes. These were tall, artificial walls of sand. From the boardwalk, you couldn't even see the ocean anymore, just that steep slope. Even though the beach technically closed after sunset, locals didn't really care. The town was quiet, the kind where kids roamed freely and nobody batted an eye if you were out late. I was the kind of kid who liked to push boundaries, not in a dangerous way, just curious. That night I remember getting into an argument with my older brother. I don't remember what it was about. I just wanted space, and sneaking out was easy. The downstairs rooms had a sliding glass door that barely made a sound. I slipped out barefoot, expecting to maybe run into some other kids. But when I got there, the boardwalk was completely empty, totally still. Not a soul in sight. The silence was heavy, like the beach itself was asleep. I was about to turn around when I noticed a thin trail of smoke rising from behind one of the dunes. I thought it was fog at first, but it wasn't moving right. It was rising, steady, smoke. That wasn't uncommon. Some tourists lit bonfires even when they weren't supposed to. But something about this felt off. No noise, no people, just that smoke twisting into the sky. I should have gone home, but I didn't. I climbed the dune, just far enough to stay hidden. When I reached the top, I saw it, a fire burning in the middle of an empty beach. No chairs, no coolers, no people, just flames. My stomach turned, but I slid down the dune and walked toward it. I don't know why. Something told me it wasn't right, but I couldn't stop. I stood there a moment, then started kicking sand onto the fire until the flames died down. And that's when I saw what was in the ashes. Clothing. Kids' clothing. Shoes. Socks. Half-burnt shirts. Stuff I could have worn myself. Then I saw the photographs. Most were burned, but one had survived enough to show a face. A boy, my age. And he looked familiar, like if someone said he was my cousin, I'd believe it. My chest tightened. I dropped the stick I'd been holding and backed up. That's when I heard the voice. "Hey!" I turned and saw a man stumbling toward me. Bald, pale, wearing a heavy jacket. Something about the way he moved, off balance, made my skin crawl. He shouted again. "Hey, kid!" I didn't move. Then louder. "Don't you go anywhere!" I ran. The sand made it hard to move. I could hear him behind me, swearing, getting closer. Just as I reached the top of the dune, I felt his fingers graze my ankle. I kicked and twisted free, rolling down the other side. I didn't stop. I ran back to the house, barefoot and scraped up. I locked the door behind me and cried in my room. I wanted to tell someone, but I was too scared I'd get in trouble for sneaking out. So I kept it to myself. There were no reports the next day, no missing kids, no cops at the beach, nothing. But I remember the fire, and that photo, that boy. Sometimes I wonder who he was, and what would have happened if I hadn't run.